Welcome back, ladies, and sadly, probably mostly gentlemen, to the Red Zone Warriors Fantasy Football Show. Today is Wednesday, November the 5th. I am Rob the Commish Smith, here as always with Jay Cushman Corsel in the Red Zone Warriors satellite studios of Denver, Colorado and Grand Rapids, Michigan to give you the best fantasy football information around. You know, Cushman, I'm only here today because I didn't take down the $1 Million Draft King tournament this weekend. You know, I was in 1,200th place late in the day Sunday out of 57,000 players, and then Kaepernick shit the bed.
Yeah, well, he will do that, you know. I mean, Kaepernick is notorious for shitting beds. I also heard he likes to give golden showers, but those are unconfirmed rumors from massage parlors that I may or may not have ever been to.
Rumors for another day. All right, everybody, as always, tweet us your fantasy football questions at Red Zone Warriors. All right, we're going to get right to it. Jay, why don't you start us off with the latest news and notes and injuries around the NFL?
All right, well, you know, Sammy Watkins injured his groin in practice. Doug Marrone says that he could play or he could be out for 2 to 3 weeks. I don't know. That doesn't help, man. He doesn't have any information. Owners should monitor and prepare as if he's not going to play because that's just the smart thing to do here, guys. I mean, really. If you guys, you know how it happens. Not going to go over it with you. Here you go.
Yeah, it's brutal. It's also knocks Kyle Orton down a notch if you're going to potentially play him for a bye week fill-in, considering there's 6 teams on bye this week at QB, so keep that in mind.
We should probably look at that.
Yeah, probably look at that. All right, so moving right along here, the Texans. This was coming down the rumor mill here for the past few weeks, but Ryan Mallett has been named the starting quarterback going into next week. So Coach Bill O'Brien has named him just today, Wednesday, after he said, you know, debating it during recent days, whether to make the change. And he says, quote, "This might be the thing that helps our team, or I might be wrong," unquote. So not feeling super confident there in either option, clearly. But Fitzpatrick's going to go to the bench here. They have a bye week this week, so they'll be starting in week 11. Maybe this is to pacify Mr. Andre Johnson. Who knows? He's been disgruntled, clearly. But that's the deal moving forward. Ryan Mallett up to bat. Wow.
You know, looking at it from Ryan Mallett's perspective here, I would have to say that I would feel, man, it doesn't seem like the team would have a lot of confidence in him with that kind of quote. You know, maybe it'll help, maybe it won't. We'll give it a try. Gosh, man, that's pretty brutal. Pretty brutal. And I thought the coach was supposed to back up the guy who's putting it behind center, you know. Anyway, moving on to some really good news, ladies and gentlemen. Not just for fantasy owners, but for your beloved Cushman, as I am obviously a Detroit Lions fan. Calvin Johnson and Reggie Bush are back at practice. Yes, that's right. The Detroit Lions, who have been winning, mind you, without Calvin Johnson, will have him back soon. He had that high ankle sprain. You know, Bush has missed the past 3 games with ankle issues of his own. You know, I mean, it hasn't been great, but we have been winning, and hopefully they're both expected to be back in the lineup this week, Rob, against the Dolphins. So, Miami fans out there, I'm really sorry. But my prediction for this week is that Ryan Tannehill will be running for his life from our amazing defensive front, and that our offense will just dominate you with Calvin and Golden Tate and Reggie Bush and Joique Bell. Rob?
Yeah, well, time will tell. I will say that the Miami defense has been doing really well the last couple, 2-3 weeks.
That's because they haven't had to face Megatron at the Golden one.
Yeah, well, we shall see. That is why they play the game, as they say. All right, moving along. Adrian Peterson, is he back? Is he not back? We still don't know, frankly. They did indeed reach a plea agreement. He got some fancy lawyer, as you knew he would do, reach some sort of plea agreement. He got a reduced sentence. So he's not going to face any jail time. Not that anyone thought that was actually going to ever happen anyway. Chris Mortensen did come out and say it is, quote, very possible Peterson plays again for the Vikings this season. It's hard to say here, everybody. I think the best information would be if you have room for him, on your bench. I wouldn't drop some super relevant player that's doing it for you. But if you have a deep bench, you're in a deeper league, or something along those lines, or maybe you have a pretty solid winning record and you can afford to add him to your bench, go ahead and do so. It's very much up in the air whether or not this guy's going to play again. Of course, obviously, if he does, he can make a huge boost for your team, but there's no guarantee that he's going to play. So it's just kind of this is a case-by-case situation based on your team and scenario, I guess I would say.
Yeah, I did hear a little bit from whole Mort on the radio last night, and basically what he said was this. Well, the law isn't going to do much to him, and he's eligible to play, but the NFL is going to review this over the next week as the Vikings are on bye this week. So he basically said, well, it could either be he could come back or he could get 6 more games. And nobody knows what's going to happen. That's up in the air, guys. If you held on to AP this long, I'd say hold on to him for a little longer. And if he's on your waiver wire, like the commish said, if you don't got to drop anything too important, go get his ass, because it is Adrian Peterson, for Pete's sake. I mean, people held on to Josh Gordon all year long. Grab AP. So moving on here, the Bucs will turn back to Josh McCown at quarterback. Lovie Smith cannot give up his love affair with Josh McCown, apparently. I think this is a mistake. I think it's going to affect the Tampa Bay receivers. Not that they're great by any means or world beaters, but I think it will negatively affect them. And McCown isn't really worth much in fantasy, so have fun with that. Rob?
Yeah, Cushman, I think it's fair to say that Lovey just can't quit Josh McCown.
Absolutely fair.
All right, Lamar Miller is considered day-to-day. He got an MRI after last week's game. It revealed that he had an AC joint sprain. Of course, Miller says he's going to be fine. A lot of players say that. It is, of course, the tough matchup against the Lions at Detroit this week. So it wasn't a great play anyway, but if he was healthy, the guy's like a top 15 back in most scoring systems, so you would have played him one way or the other. But definitely something to monitor. If he is out, Daniel Thomas, Damian Williams are going to be the guys that are going to get the majority of the workload. But again, it's not a very good matchup, and none of these guys are world beaters. I'd probably, if I had to choose one, I'd probably go Damian Williams because he's more a threat out of the backfield from a passing perspective, and that might work a little better than trying to run between the tackles, clearly. But it's just a bad matchup and a bad situation.
Yes, it's a very bad matchup, as I mentioned earlier. Number 1 defense in the league, probably one of the. I don't remember who it was. Some NFL guy, something or other, said that the Detroit Lions defensive front may very well be the best he's ever seen.
You guys did lose a lineman, though, didn't you?
Nick Fairley is down, but that line is so incredibly deep that it's it sucks, but it's not the end of the world. You know what I mean? So, and as long as we don't have idiots like C.J. Mosley deciding to bring a little bud over to London and disable the smoke alarm in his fucking hotel room so that he gets caught smoking it and gets sent home and suspended, we won't have a problem. But, dude, coming from the Cushman, CJ, dumbass. That's fucking rookie shit right there, man. Come on. All right, moving on. Kyle Rudolph eyes a Week 11 return. You guys all know, if you've been listening to this show, at the beginning of the season, I was really high on this guy. Unfortunately, he did get injured. He had to have hernia surgery. Rob, in case you're unfamiliar with that, Rob, that's when your intestines drop into your nutsack.
Oh, thank you for that.
Thought you'd like that. With your whole dislike of groin injuries. So it's his goal. He said he's got to get himself back in football shape. In his mind, he said he has 2 weeks to go, so he's ready to do everything he can to get out there. Come on back, Kyle. Minnesota could use you. Rob?
Indeed, they could. All right, Giovanni Bernard, of course, suffered a hip injury a couple weeks ago, which is why Jeremy Hill crushed it last week. Thank you. Helped me out in DraftKings quite a bit. A couple other teams I had him in. But he's officially listed as doubtful to play this week. It is a short week. They do play tomorrow against the Browns. The beat writer there, Paul Dinner, if that's correct. I probably butchered that. But he's quoted as saying it won't happen, quote unquote. So it's looking extremely sketchy, which means Jeremy Hill is going to be a fantastic play. If you have him in any of your fantasy teams, start him with vigor. And if you play in any of these DraftKings leagues or daily leagues, of course you got to play in one that starts on Thursday. Some of them do, some of them don't. But Jeremy Hill ran. I mean, we'll talk about this, but he ran for like 160 yards, couple scores. So it's a great matchup against the Browns for Jeremy Hill and the Bengals.
That it is. Now moving on to more happy news for quite a few fantasy owners out there. The commission I included. Josh Gordon is coming back week 12, ladies and gentlemen. I know. On that Gordon hype train, ladies and gentlemen. And the beat writer, Mary Cabot in Cleveland, said, quote, Josh has been working really hard, and I think he'll be ready to unload on the Falcons on November 23rd in his first game back from a 10-game suspension. It could shape up to be the best possible news for Gordon owners. His team is still being, it's in the thick of things. Week 12, it's going to be, dude, look, he's going to freaking blow up. As long as the guy's in football shape, he's got, Calvin Johnson-esque skills, and Cleveland really could use somebody to just throw the ball up to, and he's going to be that guy. So if you had him and held on to him, congratulations. If he's somehow, some way on your waiver wire, better go get him because Week 12 is coming soon. It is the second coming of Jesus Gordon.
Yeah. I mean, he's gonna. It's one of those. I mean, it is a completely different offense. They're more run heavy. Although of the last few weeks, they couldn't run the ball to save their life after their center Mack went down. So, I don't know that he's just gonna leave off exactly where he was last year, but he's definitely a top 5 gifted talent at the wide receiver position. And Brian Hoyer is at no risk of losing his job, and they have a connection clearly enough played together. So. This is good news all around, and they are 5-3. They are in the thick of it. They play the Bengals this tomorrow night, but either way, they're still going to be in the thick of it when Josh Gordon gets back. So
that matchup is phenomenal too. The Falcons' defense is terrible. So, yeah, that could be a really good. Actually, to be honest with you, what you might want to do here, folks, is if Josh Gordon comes back week 12 and blows the fuck up against a shitty defense, trade bait, baby. Go get you somebody. Go get you a couple somebodies.
Yeah, I mean, potentially that's definitely always an option depending on your needs. If you're deep at wide receiver, need a running back or something, that could definitely be the case. So, all right, moving on. Nick Foles is out, expected to be out probably, they're saying roughly around 6 weeks now. We saw Aaron Rodgers have a collarbone fracture last season. He was out for 8 to 6 weeks, I forget, but it was several weeks. So Mark Butt Fumble Sanchez comes in. He actually looked very good in this offense in the preseason, but it was the preseason, so clearly it's like, what are you playing against second string guys, third string guys, and so forth.
I was in a preseason game this year.
Yeah. So Sanchez came in after Foles went down, third quarter or so, I believe. He did look pretty good. He did, threw his ceremonious couple picks as he does, but he did look good throwing the ball to Macklin, spread the ball around. This is just a very good offense. Well, I think it's more about the offense, frankly, than it is about Sanchez and his talent. I mean, we've seen this guy in the past, but he is capable. I don't think it hurts any of his offensive weapons there. in Philadelphia. I think Macklin and all those guys are still completely fine. And frankly, it might, some people are speculating it might be an actual slight upgrade over Foles, because Foles isn't exactly killing it in quarterback ratings when you just look at it non-fantasy wise. So either way, Sanchez is going to be the man for the majority rest of the fantasy season. So note that and pick him up if you're in a 2-quarterback league, or you're dying at quarterback this week. We got 6 teams on buys or something. There could potentially be worse options out there, actually.
Yeah, there could be worse options, although I don't know what they could be. Mark Sanchez. Oh, I'm sorry, Philadelphia fans. I kind of like the Eagles. I like the whole Chip Kelly offense thing and the way they do, but man, I don't know. Sanchez.
Jay, who would have thought Sanchez and Michael Vick would be starting for their respective teams coming, week 10 of the NFL season?
Not the Jets or the Eagles. Guarantee you that.
That's true.
Guarantee that. Moving on to our last bit of news for the week here. Fred Jackson's eyeing an early return, guys. He missed week 8 with a groin injury.
Oh.
That he suffered in week 7 against Minnesota. He's been getting treatment. He's been rehabbing throughout the bye week and is hoping to return sooner rather than later. Return this week would be a week earlier than the projected 4 weeks after the injury. And even if he's not back this week, it appears that there's a chance, and the odds are pretty good that he'll be back week 11. So it may not be a bad idea if he's on your waiver wire by some odd chance to go grab him now. That way, you might be able to pay less for him if you're in a blind bid situation, or you might be able to sneak one in there if you're in a reverse standings type of waiver situation, which if you are, you need to talk to your commissioner about changing that because it sucks. Anyway, moving on here, actually, we're just going to move right along to this week's recap of last week's fantasy stuff. And we're going to start with the Saints and Panthers. This was a 28-10 win by the Saints. And Mark Ingram in this one, 30 carries. Love to see that, as I have Mark Ingram. 30 carries for 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. And yes, Mark Ingram even added 1 catch, ladies and gentlemen. He can catch the ball sometimes. Drew Brees, 24-34, 297 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Looked pretty damn good. Jimmy Graham is normal. Jimmy Graham stuff, 7 catches, 83 yards, and a touchdown. Kenny Stills had 5 catches for 72 yards, and that's pretty much it for Saints fantasy relevant performances there. We'll move over to the other side of the ball here. Cam Newton, 10-28, 151 yards and a pick. Ooh. He did add 7 carries for 43 yards and a rushing touchdown, though. So he does add, Cam. That's the thing about guys like Cam Newton. They can save your day with that rushing touchdown. Jonathan Stewart had 8 carries for 46 yards in this one, and D'Angelo Williams 8 carries for 20 yards. Let me tell you something. Anybody that's relying on anybody in the Carolina backfield besides Cam Newton is in dire need of help, because those guys never do shit, just to be honest with you. And there was really not much to say on the passing side of the ball. Greg Olsen had another quiet week here. What the fuck, Cam? Throw the fucking ball to the big white boy. It was working really well the first few weeks of the season, so stop fucking around and do it, because I need you to do that. And other than that, Jericho Crotchery had crotchery.
He did it again.
Hey, dude, look, I'm just gonna embrace it. His name.
When you have crotch in the mind, you have crotch in the mind.
And can't help it. We're talking about these groin injuries and hernia surgeries and shit. So, Crotchery, he had 2 catches for 59 yards, and that is literally the only thing worth mentioning. Calvin Benjamin, 2 for 18. I mean, not a good day for the Carolina Panthers. Rob?
Yeah, it's not sheer chance, Jay, that you always end up doing the Panthers game in these weekly updates. I'm just going to say that.
Yeah, you're a dick.
All right. So I'm going to try to get through this one without crying, ladies and gentlemen. The Broncos, well, they got beat. They lost.
They didn't just get beat.
Hey, you watch your mouth. They got beat. We don't need to say the score. We don't need to go there.
43-21.
Something along those lines. They got beat.
Spanked. I'm sorry,
You
dude.
know,
Listen, man, we gotta give you shit because it doesn't happen often. They're a hell of a team, but Tom Brady can't showed up to prove something.
yeah, I was actually talking to a buddy of mine. Give Mr. Mike Hines a shout out
What
here
up,
on the Red
Mike?
Zone. Yeah, what's up, buddy? He's a huge Broncos fan. We had a little conversation about this game prior to, and I just said, man, I just didn't have a good feeling about it. I hate feeling that way. I just didn't. I mean, going into New England, Broncos feeling pretty good about themselves, going into this cold weather game of which Peyton doesn't necessarily excel in. That's a bit overrated on that fact sheet, however. But anyway, it just didn't do well, man. And even after the game, of course, he always says it was his fault and so on. He was 34 of 57 for 438 yards and 2 touchdowns. So how bad is that? It's not clearly awful. He did have 2 interceptions. Ronnie Hillman, of course, just carried the ball 10 times for 16 yards. They were not running the ball well. He was dinged up in this game coming into it with a shoulder issue. I don't know how much that had an effect on him, but they were down early and often here, so they didn't run the ball quite a bit at all in this one. Receiving wise, Manuel Sanders was targeted the most. You had Demarius on Revis Island a little bit, but Sanders caught 10 of 16 for 151, so he got the job done. Demarius caught 7 of 11 for a $127, so it's not like he had a bad game, even with Revis on the other side of the ball. Other than that, Ronnie Hillman did catch 7 of 10 out of the backfield, so he gets it done in a PPR for you, even though he didn't do much in the ground. And then the other side of the ball, sadly, the winning side, Brady, of course, had a great game. He had 4 touchdowns, 1 pick, and 33 of 53 for 333 yards. So, the Patriots, they're just firing on all cylinders. They have been over the past month or so. He went from being a guy that you were cutting from your fantasy team to a guy you can't start quick enough. That's just the way
People are now putting in MVP conversations.
Yeah, it's just the way she goes in fantasy. It's crazy. Shane Vereen at 11 carries for 29 yards, but he also had 5 receptions on 10 targets for 38 yards and a score. Jonas Gray, you thought would have been a little bit more involved here, considering they were up quite a bit, that they would run the ball, playing the Stephen Ridley role. But I think they were just trying to put the hammer down and move up the score, quite frankly. He only had 12 carries for 33 yards and 0 catches on 1 attempt. So, Brandon LaFell, he was targeted the most in this offense, and that's Gronk included. He was targeted 13 times by Brady. He caught 6 of those for 53 yards and a score. So this is a very relevant fantasy player moving forward. Gronk caught 9 of 10 for a $105 and a touch. He had one of the best catches I've ever seen with his bionic arm.
That was a crazy good catch.
Yeah, there's some clips, some vines and whatnot of Brady coming over to him and basically said, "How the fuck did you catch that ball?" That's a direct quote. And then Edelman's back. He's back, baby. He sucked for 2 weeks, which made no sense because Edelman is just the blankie, clearly, of Brady, and he sucked. He got benched. I don't know, but man, caught 9 of 10 targets for 89 yards, a touchdown through the air, and also a touchdown on special teams. If you played him, he delivered big time. And that is it for the sad loss of the Broncos to the Patriots. We will see you in the AFC Championship game for revenge.
That is the most likely scenario. I would agree with you there. All right, moving on to the sad Tampa Bay Buccaneers and their loss to the Browns, 22-17 here. Mike Glennon, obviously we talked earlier, he's getting benched for Lovie Smith's man crush, Josh McCown, probably because he's throwing picks. Threw 2 interceptions in this game to go along with his 2 touchdowns and 260 yards. Bobby Rainey had 19 carries in this one for 87 yards, added 1 catch for 34 yards. What's that? Charles Sims, I believe his name is, or something like that. It's coming back from injury. Watch out for him in Tampa Bay, folks. Rainey had a decent game there, but he's been real inconsistent along with all the other backs in Tampa Bay, and this guy is supposed to be pretty dynamite, so keep an eye out for him. Moving on to the receiving here, Mike Evans had a hell of a game, folks. Did the if I'm not mistaken, I saw on ESPN that he did the little Johnny Manziel money fingers thing for both the touchdowns that he caught to go along with the other 5 catches, totaling 7 for 124 yards. Hell of a day for that guy. Vincent Jackson, who was actually targeted more times than Mike Evans, only caught 6 balls for 86 yards and no touchdowns. Moving on to the other side of the ball here, Brian Hoyer, 21 of 34 for 2 touchdowns, also threw 2 picks. Terrence West had more carries than Ben Tate and more yards than Ben Tate. 15 carries, 48 yards, compared to Ben Tate's 10 carries for 3 yards. Yeah, you did hear me correctly. That is 0.3 yards per carry. Man, talk about kicking ass and taking names. Not what he's doing. Receiving side of the ball, not much to talk about here. Taylor Gabriel had 5 catches for 87 yards and a touchdown. Miles Austin, 3 for 54. Travis Benjamin, 2 for 52. That's about it for this game.
All right, yeah, I mean, it is the year of the rookie wide receivers, man. There is no doubt. They are killing it. They are killing it across the board. There's a handful of guys. This is unlike we've probably ever seen in the NFL, that the rookie wide receivers are making such a fantasy impact for us and just for their teams in general. So, all right, we're going to move on to the now 6-3 Cowboys and their loss to the now 7-1 Cardinals to the tune of 28-17. They are falling off a bit. I don't know if there's a Romo-esque type showing. Now, in their defense, Romo was hurt. Brandon Weeden got the start. Well, he sucked. He pretty much sucked out there. It was 18 of 33 for 183. He only averaged 5.5 yards a throw because he sucks.
Are you sure that's not a rush? A throw?
That would be an attempt for the quarterback.
My
yes.
gosh, dude.
That's called bottom of the barrel. He threw 1 touchdown and 2 picks. It was ugly here. DeMarco Murray, this was his first game under 100 yards. Probably can also blame Weeden for that.
That Cardinals defense, though.
Yeah, they are fantasy-wise, they're the number 1 team against the rush of late. So he had 19 carries for 79 yards. He also caught all 4 of his targets for 11 yards. So he did okay, but you're expecting from him week in and week out a little bit down for his owners this week. Jason Witten caught 6 of 7 for 62. And Dez Bryant, targeted 10 times, but he only caught 2 of those for 15 yards. Did manage to score like last week to somewhat salvage his day, but he's definitely not putting up the numbers that his fantasy owners, who picked him in the first round, beginning of the second, as their wide receiver 1, expect.
Come on, Dez.
Yeah, that is for sure. Terrence Williams also only caught 2 of his 7 targets for 19 yards. It was just, man, when Weeden's in there, it's brutal. Tony Romo did fly over to London. Jason Lockenfora said, he's wouldn't have taken the trip if he wasn't going to play. He didn't practice today. He's expected to practice tomorrow. In all likelihood, he will play, but you still need to monitor that. You're still going to start Dez Bryant and DeMarco for sure either way. But other than that, you might want to hold off on your other guys pending that status. On the Arizona side of the ball, Carson Palmer still getting it done, 22 of 34 for 249, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. Andre Ellington is just killing it. He got his 25 touches again this week, 21 carries for 95 yards. He also had caught all 4 of his targets for 39 and a score. So he's getting it done on the ground and in the air. Larry Fitzgerald was targeted 6 times, caught 5 for 70. And Michael Floyd still kind of struggling here. Caught 4 of 5, but only for 36 yards. So he's not getting those downfield. He's getting targeted downfield, but he's not getting the catches. And then you've got Mr. Brown in there, who's kind of dipping into Floyd's potential there. So he's definitely been a bust thus far this season. And frankly, in a 10-man league, is droppable. I never thought I would say that because I was super high on him, and he's talented and he's healthy and he's in a good offense with a good quarterback. They just spread it around the way they do. His production has just been down, down, down. So it's unfortunate, but that's what we have for Dallas and Arizona.
Yeah, Michael Floyd, you make me sad. You really do. Not good. All right, we're going to move on here to the Eagles in their defeating of the Texans, 31-21. And obviously in this one we know that Nick Foles went out. Before he went out, he was 10 of 13 for 124 yards, 1 touchdown and 1 pick. Mark Sanchez, who came in to relieve him, was 15 of 22 for 202 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 picks. LaShawn McCoy, 23 carries, 117 yards. But Mr. Chris Polk, who had 8 carries for 50 yards, stole the touchdown this week. So no touchdown for Mr. McCoy.
Fuck you, Chris Polk.
Yeah, no doubt, man. No doubt. Jeremy Maclin, good God. This guy, as long as he's healthy, which this year he's staying that way so far, 6 catches, 158 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That's pretty damned impressive. Darren Sproles caught 4 balls for 46 yards. Jordan Matthews caught 3 for 40 and a touchdown. That's pretty much it for fantasy relevance in the receiving side of the ball there for Philadelphia. Moving on, Ryan Fitzpatrick, who is being replaced, 13 of 27, 203 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. Arian Foster, 15 carries for 56 yards, added 2 catches for 63 yards and a touchdown, salvaging his day. And DeAndre Hopkins, 6 for 115 and a touchdown. Andre Johnson held only 2 catches for 12 yards in this one, so not a great day for him, and he continues to have a really tough time finding the end zone at all. Rob?
All right, so we've got the now 1-8 Jets. They got beat by the Chiefs 24-10. I mean, Cushman, over-under on the number of games Rex Ryan has left in the Jets, and I will put that at 2.
I'm going to go with... oh, man, have they already had their bye week?
I do not know.
Yeah, if they haven't had their bye week, I'm going to go with he gets fired right at the bye week. But if they have, then I'll stick with the 2.
Yeah, I mean, I'm shocked he's had his job over the last couple of years. The last couple of years, I thought he was going to get whacked.
He's been a bum for more than this year, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, now they're 1-8. Quarterback issues galore. He's done. There's no way he finishes the season. I'll be shocked. So we'll make this one quick. Michael Vick, of course, got the start because E.J. Emanuel sucks. Vick was 21 of 28 for a 196, 1 touchdown, no picks, so a blase day for him. He only rushed the ball for 18 yards, so he did nothing for fantasy-wise except not throw a pick, I guess, and get negative points if that's the scoring system in your league. Who did see a perk up would have been Percy Harvin. He did have 1 carry for 8 yards, but he was targeted 13 times. He's not seen that amount of targets in a while. Caught 11 of them for 129 yards. That's what you're looking for. He is doing the kick returns as well. So Percy Harvin owners are happy, but that's kind of about it. Chris Johnson carried the ball 11 times for 69 yards. Chris Ivory came up small in this one, which is odd because he's been the guy for the past month or so. Only had 8 carries for 22 yards, so that was not so good. On the Kansas City side of the ball, Alex Smith, 21 of 31 for a $199 and 2 scores, no picks, because he really doesn't throw picks, especially when he's only throwing it 6.4 yards on average down the field. If that's even considered down the field, it's kind of just not so much. Jamal Charles getting all sorts of touches, got 20 carries for 78 yards and a rushing TD there. He also caught 2 of 4 targets for 10 yards. So he's continuing to get it done as long as he's healthy and in the lineup. Travis Kelce getting it done. for me, among millions of others, caught 4 of 5 for 67 yards and a score. Dwayne Bowe caught 6 of 10 for 55 and no score. And that is it for the Chiefs and the Jets.
All right, moving on to what our viewers from Reddit will know as a matchup between two cat team brotherhood teams, the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Cincinnati Bengals. And the Bengals were victorious in this one, 33-23. We'll start with the losing side of the ball here. Blake Bortles, 23 of 33, 247 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. I think that Blake Bortles has thrown at least one interception in every game that he has played this year. I would be willing to put money on that. Man, that's not great, but he does get it done for him, I guess, sort of, kind of. Denard Robinson, guys, I think it's time to say that he is a legitimate running back in this league. Even though he does not tie his shoes, 17 carries, 94 yards, and a touchdown. Added 2 catches for 10 yards to that. That compares to Toby Gerhart's measly 3 carries for 19 yards. On the receiving side of the ball, Allen Hurns, 7 catches, 112 yards, 2 touchdowns. Gerhart did have 3 catches for 49 yards in this one. Cecil Shorts 5 for 40. And Allen Robinson 4 for 35. Moving on to Cincinnati side of the ball, the Red Rocket, Andy Dalton, 19 to 31, 233 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Jeremy Hill, we talked about him earlier, 24 carries, 154 yards, 2 touchdowns. Pretty damn good. Mohamed Sanu actually led the team in targets and receptions, even though A.J. Green was back. 4 catches, 95 yards, and a touchdown. A.J. Green, though, had 3 catches for 44 yards and a touchdown. Jermaine Gresham, 5 for 36. That's not Ben Tate. I always do that. I always see B. Tate. It's not Ben Tate, so we're not even going to talk about him because it's just Brandon Tate. Who gives a shit? A.J. Green did fumble the ball once. He didn't lose it. So he's back, but it seems like Mohamed Sanu is going to continue to see some targets as he has earned Andy Dalton's trust. And Denard Robinson, Rob, I just want you to comment on him just a little bit because, damn, I'm impressed with the guy.
Yeah, I was not a believer. I will admit that. I thought he was too small. I mean, you rarely see a converted quarterback to running back. So you sometimes have seen the NFL quarterback to wide receiver, that sort of thing. But running back, I know he put on some weight, but he's still, man, and he's on a bad team. I just was not a believer, but you can't, I mean, you look at him run, you look at his stats, I mean, you have to believe. There's just, what else are you going to do?
Yeah, well, like I said, man, the guy, when he was in college, I mean, I'm not a Michigan fan, but I do live here. And when he was here, it was ridiculous. I mean, the guy was putting up like 700 yards a game by himself between, passing and rushing. It was stupid how he's just one of those athletes that's fucking ridiculous. And when I saw Jacksonville drafted him, I don't know if you remember, I actually said, hey, watch out for this guy. He's gonna do something. Whether they use him as a receiver or punt return or whatever, he's gonna be something special.
Yeah, well, clearly that's panned out. All right, so we're gonna move on to it has to be the most shocking game of the week.
Absolutely.
I mean, who saw, nobody, but just put it out there, who saw the Dolphins, granted they were at home, but still, crushing, drubbing, smashing the frickin' Chargers of all teams, 37-0. 0 meaning, Cushman, they didn't score a point. Nothing. Got a 0, didn't score a point on any level. Nothing, not even a defensive safety.
Phillip Rivers didn't even show up for this fucking game.
This is what I'm saying. That's why I don't think they're going to be not calling for a drubbing of the Lions by any stretch. They're not going to be a pushover. Their defense is legit, and when you can hold the Chargers, who have a very good offensive team, clearly with an elite quarterback with great weapons, to 0 points and completing only 12 of 23 when you're down that much, he only had 23 attempts because they kept turning the ball over for only 138 yards, no scores, and 3 picks. That is nothing to scoff at. I mean, that was a brilliant defensive game here, and it hasn't been the first by the Miami Dolphins. Rushing, I mean, there's really not much to say here. Donald Brown, he sucks as usual. Only carried the ball 4 times for 23 yards. Brandon Oliver carried it 13 for 19, so yards per carry-wise, Brown did do better than Oliver. And Ryan Matthews is expected to come back here after their bye, so that's going to blow up this backfield and make it a cluster F. Receiving-wise, as you can imagine, there wasn't much here. Keenan Allen was targeted 9 times, only caught 4 for 47. Michael Floyd caught 4 of 5 for 60, and that's about it. On the Miami side, Tannehill, man, 24 of 34 for 288, 3 touchdowns, no picks. So if you played him in a daily league or had to start him last week, he definitely got it done for you. Lamar Miller carried it 11 times for 49 yards and a score. And, man, receiving-wise, Charles Clay and Mike Wallace each targeted 8 times. Clay caught 5 for 65 and a score. Wallace just caught 3 for a measly 16. So he's kind of pittered out a little bit after getting off to a pretty hot start. That's about it. But, man, who saw this coming? And I tell you, a lot of guys are talking. I mean, I think the game of the week, a lot of people are very intrigued about your matchup here with the Dolphins and seeing how competitive it's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, look, they've got a decent defense. They showed a little promise here, but I just don't see it, man. I don't see it. It's not that I'm not saying they're not going to, they're not going to get some turnovers and their defense isn't going to do well. I just don't think their offense is going to be able to do a goddamn thing with Tannehill on his back all day, which is exactly where he's going to be. So, just saying, they're going to they're going to use him to make a stew sandwich.
Well, that's the thing about the Lions, as you well know. They usually win these type games, and they'll turn around and lose to the Jaguars.
Well, see, they haven't been doing that this year, though, man.
Yeah.
It's not the Lions of old.
Because of the Golden Tate. Golden Tate has changed that entire team.
No, it's the Caldwell era. No, everything I've been hearing coming out of freaking the Lions camp, man, is how much the players respect that coach and how much he's changed the atmosphere of that locker room. So I'm kind of hoping that that's the case and that the talent's going to start to shine through now. And anyway, get me talking about the Lions, you know what'll happen. All right, moving on. 29-26 Vikings win over the Redskins, and I really wish the Redskins could have pulled this one out here, as I'd like to see the Vikings lose anytime because they're a rival of my Lions. But the Vikings won, and RG3 is starting to lose his grasp on being the QB of the future in Washington, I believe. So he was 18-28, 251 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. He didn't look great. So, yeah, that's tough, man. Pierre Garçon's not looking great because of it. It's tough over there. Alfred Morris, 19 carries for 92 yards and 2 touchdowns. Added 2 catches for 17 yards. Robert Griffin only had 7 carries for 24 yards, so he's not doing a ton with his legs. He might be a little nervous after all the injuries he's suffered. Deshaun Jackson, asshole, had 4 catches for 120 yards and a touchdown. Roy Halou had 4 catches for 46 yards. Niles Paul, 2 for 18. Jordan Reed only had 1 catch for 17 yards. And Pierre Garçon, 3 for 15. He has not been the guy I thought he was going to be this year. That is for sure. Moving on to Minnesota side of the ball. Teddy Bridgewater, 26 of 42. 268 yards and a touchdown. Jerick McKinnon, 14 carries for 54 yards. Was not a great showing this week. Matt Asiata had 10 carries for 26 yards, but the asshole had 3 goal line carries, 3 touchdowns.
Fuck you, man.
Matt Asiata.
Dude.
Get the fuck off the field. Jesus fucking. Fuck me right in the asshole this week. I tell you what. I'm not even gonna tell you people the pathetic, sad score that I had in one of my leagues this week. It was embarrassing. Extremely embarrassing.
He's got to be like the worst TD vulture of all time.
Oh, absolutely, man.
I mean, he doesn't score one. He scores 0 or 3 touchdowns. All his carries, his 10 measly carries for a measly 2.6 yards, were all like within the 10-yard line.
Yeah, yeah,
McKinnon
exactly.
gets them all the way down the field, whether catching it or running it, and an ass man gets in there and freaking screws all of us.
Yeah, well, that's and you'll have that. You will have the ass man. That's his new name, ladies and gentlemen. Matt Assman Asiata. You can quote us on that. Send it to him. Tweet it to him. All right. So on the receiving side of the ball, Greg Jennings here this week. Most targets and most catches. 6 catches, 76 yards. He didn't get a touchdown on that though. Matt Asiata had 4 catches for 31 yards. Chase Ford, 5 catches, 66 yards, and a touchdown. And McKinnon, 3 catches for 14 yards. Not a great day. Cordell Patterson continues to, after a strong first couple games of the season, just disappoint week after week. 1 catch for 9 yards. And with the talk of the Cordell disappointment, back to you, Rob.
Yeah, I will say Teddy Bridgewater missed him wide ass open for a touchdown. Like he was so wide open. I don't even know if he could have caught it because it's just one of those deals.
He did have 7 targets, man. He just only caught one of them.
But I mean, he missed a long TD for a score because Bridgewater missed him completely. Like it was embarrassing. Anyone in our listening audience, our faithful listening audience, could have completed that pass.
The faithful few.
All 3 of you out there. All of you could have completed that pass.
Yeah.
All right, so we are going to move on here to, man, if you like defensive games, one of those type guys. I'm not one of those guys, but if you are, you like this one. The Rams, the 49ers, the Rams defeat the 49ers because they are not what they used to be, to the tune of 13-10. Yeah, not a whole lot of ESPN highlights in this one. Austin Davis.
Not so much.
13-24 for 105 yards. I think our listening audience could have thrown for more than 105 yards as well. Only averaged 4.4 yards a throw or a completion. Either way, it was horrible. 1 touchdown, 2 picks. Trey Mason got the bulk of the work. Again, 19 carries, 65 yards. Benny Cunningham only got 4 carries for 10 yards. So, the coaching staff here came out and said I'm not going to name a starter quite yet. But clearly it should be Trey Mason. But they've got a pretty brutal schedule coming up. So, buyer beware on that. Receiving side of the ball, Cunningham out of the backfield caught all 3 of his targets for 38 yards. Jared Cook targeted the most 5 times, only caught 2 for 12 yards, doing Jared Cook type things.
Jared Cook sucks dick.
Well, who sucks more is Kenny Britt.
Fuck you, Kenny Britt. You go to hell.
Hate you, Kenny Britt.
You are dead to me.
Caught 2 of 4 for 32 yards. Did get a lone score, but we're not going to be tempted, you temptress, Kenny Britt. It's not going to happen.
You fucking succubus bitch.
We're not going to pick you up for the 9th consecutive year because you have hope and promise. No, you're dead to us.
Fuck you.
It's not going to happen. Kaepernick, San Francisco side of the ball, 22 of 33 for 237, 1 touchdown again. He screwed me in DraftKings. I was going to take the million down, Jay. I was going to take it down or die trying, and he, killed me. So there was that. Wow, frustrating. Frank Gore carried the ball 14 times for 49 yards. Carlos Hyde, 2 for 17, which means he averaged 8.5 yards, small sample size and all, but Carlos Hyde's clearly the guy who should be getting the ball. You'd think that would happen moving forward. We shall see. Receiving-wise, Crabtree targeted the most, caught 5 of 9 for just 40 yards. He's completely fallen off. He is clearly droppable. Anquan Bolden is pretty much the only wide receiver to own, any pass catcher for that matter, to own in this one. Caught 6 of his 7 for 93 and a score. That's including Vernon Davis because he's kind of sucks too. So there's not much going on here for San Francisco from a fantasy perspective. And that is it for their loss to the Rams by the tune of 13-10.
And it's no wonder that they want Jim Harbaugh gone.
Yeah, well, Jerry Rice came out and said he thinks. I mean, he actually came out and said Jerry Harbaugh will be gone at the end of the season.
Yeah, I
That's
think
pretty
he will be
ballsy. I mean, and for Jerry Rice to say it.
Well, yeah, but it's Jerry Rice, dude.
I know, and he's having played there and all. I'm sure he's got connections to the inner circles of the 49ers leadership and so forth. That's some information there.
Yeah, it is. Well, I'm sure Michigan fans are rejoicing because I know half the people in the state are walking around with a huge Harbaugh erection, hoping and praying that he'll get released by the 49ers so that they can hire him as their coach next year and continue in their shitty Big Ten football playing ways because they suck ass. Suck ass. They do. The Wolverines suck. You heard it here. And you're about to also hear on this beautiful show how the Raiders almost beat the Seahawks. It almost happened, folks. I was laughing the whole time, hoping that it would happen, but the Seahawks pulled it out, 30-24. Derek Carr on the Raiders side of the ball, 24 of 41, 194 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Darren McFadden, 13 carries for 20 yards. Weak, but not as weak as MJD, who had 2 carries for -2 yards. McFadden also had. Sorry.
He's done. Stick a proverbial fork in MJD.
Dude, yeah, he's all done.
Whenever you're getting outrushed by McFadden,
dude, whenever you're getting the Jaguars, who suck anyway, let you go, and you end up with the Raiders, you got to know your career is pretty much over. I mean, that's just all there is to it. That's plain and simple. So McFadden added 4 catches for 47 yards. Mike Rivera in this one had 8 catches for 38 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was the guy to have here. Andre Holmes only had 2 for 28. James Jones 3 for 18. Moving on to the other side of the ball here, Russell Wilson, another disappointing week here. 17 of 35, 179 yards, no touchdowns. He only had 8 carries for 31 yards, didn't score on the ground there. Marshawn Lynch, he did get 2 touchdowns, but 21 carries for 67 yards isn't all that grand, although he had 5 catches for 76 yards. Doug Baldwin, 5 for 38. And that's about it for the Seattle side of the ball here. It was not the greatest thing in the world for their offense this week. So, Rob, with that, back to you.
Yeah, and I will say with 6 teams on bye this week, a lot of TD fantasy-friendly teams, that is. So Michael Rivera is actually a very good pickup this week against my Broncos, who are sadly not that great historically against tight ends. He's been targeted a ton, so it's a sneaky pickup there for anyone needing a tight end this week. So, all right, so we're going to move on to, I'd say this was a game, but it was more like a boxing match or an MMA fight. I mean, the flags, there was more flags than yards in this game. It was ridiculous. The Steelers ended up crushing the Ravens 43-23. They were at home in Pittsburgh and so on, but it was just brutal. I mean, Jay, there was more fights in this one than at a Steve Smith family reunion. There just was. There was fisticuffs. There was helmets coming off. It was brutal. Yeah.
Well, these teams do hate each other. They do.
They really do. They really do. It's a little immature and so forth to the extent of which they carried on. However, Joe Elite Flacco was completed 30 of 45 for 300 yards, 2 scores, 1 pick. Justin Forsett, pretty slow day, 9 carries for 38 yards. He did catch 5 of 8 for 67, so he got it done for you in a PPR. Lorenzo Tagliaferro, 7 carries for 21 yards and 3 catches for 34 yards. I believe he had a fumble too, and that's just not what you do when you're trying to take over that backfield and get more play. Just not what you want to do there. Owen Daniels, another good play this week tight end wise, but as far as this one goes, he was targeted team high 9 times, caught 6 for 53. Story of the Smiths here. Torrey Smith caught 4 of 7 for 63 and a score. And Steve Smith, who's really fallen off from his super hot start, caught 5 of 8 for only 36 yards. Really was not involved in any scuffling, which is odd. It's like the sun didn't rise in the morning. It's kind of weird. Other side of the ball, the winning side, the MVP, the Hall of Famer, the best quarterback who's ever played the game. If you listen to ESPN, 25 of his 37 attempts for 340 yards. More importantly, he had 6 touchdowns, Jay. Again. He added 6 touchdowns again.
The guy's fucking killing it, dude.
The most back-to-back touchdown, historic records, never been done before. Just crushing against, and actually Baltimore, pass-wise, they're pretty stingy on defense, and he runs in there and throws 6 more touchdowns. You say, well, who did he throw those to? Well, clearly Antonio Brown, who was targeted a team high, and it wasn't close. 16 targets. The guy catches 11 of them.
That's for my dog.
144 yards and a score.
Fruit basket's on the way, Antonio.
Yeah. The rookie, the tall, athletic rookie that everyone says is the reason why Ben is doing so well. That might be a tad of a stretch, but he is a weapon. He caught 3 of 5 for 44, but by the way, he caught 2 touchdowns. I mean, he throws 6. Someone's got to catch him. Marcus Wheaton caught 2 of 4 for 62 and a score. Le'Veon Bell caught 5 of 6 for 38 and a score. And some guy who I can't even pronounce his name, the tight end there, Matt Spaeth or Spith or something along those lines.
We'll just call him Spliff.
Spliff, he caught a score himself. Give one up for the Spiffster. Outside of that, LeGarrette Blount carried it 10 times, as did Le'Veon Bell, which was kind of weird. They both carried it for 23 and 20 yards, respectively. So they weren't running the ball because they don't need to, because their quarterback threw for 340 and 6 touchdowns. So why run the ball? It's not even any fun anymore. You can run and catch the ball.
It's kind of like playing Madden.
Yeah.
It's so much more fun, just snap the ball, have all your receivers run down the field, and just chuck the ball down the field and score every time you get the ball and run the ball. So that's what they're doing. They're just playing Madden.
They really are. And they got a great matchup this week to add to all this. So Roethlisberger's a great start in both your fantasy leagues, your daily leagues. I mean, you really, of course,
guy's
last
a hot
week
commodity right now, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Can't expect him to throw another 6. However, we would have said that last week. But scoring, another 4 or so seems about fair. And that's it for the historic game here between the Steelers and the Ravens.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and call it right now. Ben Roethlisberger is throwing 7 touchdowns this week.
Mm-hmm.
All of them to Antonio Brown. All of them. It'll be great. I'll win with just Antonio Brown this week. All right, moving on to our. Is this our last game of the week? I believe it is.
Last game.
Our last game of the week, and that is, another rout. Colts, who, may actually challenge Denver and New England for their dominance in the AFC this year over the Giants, 40-24. Just an absolute ass kicking. In this one here, Andrew Luck, 25 of 46, 354 yards, and yes, 4 touchdowns, and just really, really good game for him. Mod Bradshaw had 7 carries for 50 yards. Trent Richardson, 7 carries for 33 yards. Again, Pep Hamilton, please stop giving the ball to Trent Richardson. He sucks. Just give the ball to fucking Ahmad Bradshaw and let him do his thing until his feet fall off. All right? Thank you. Kobe Fleener targeted 11 times in this one, caught 4 balls for 77 yards and a touchdown. T.Y. Hilton, 3 catches, 71 yards and a touchdown, and Reggie Wayne, 4 catches for 70 yards and a touchdown. Dwayne Allen, 4 catches for 48 yards and a touchdown. Bradshaw added 3 catches for 29 yards. Richardson had a couple catches. I think what the main thing I would take away from this game, though, is Reggie Wayne's first game back from injury, and he had the second most targets on the team next to Kobe Fleener. And I would say going forward, he's probably going to, him and T.Y. Hilton will probably just split the targets for the most part on their on their offense. So if you've got Reggie Wayne, or if he's somehow available because somebody was stupid enough to drop him while he was injured, go get his ass. Moving on to the Giants side of the ball, Eli Manning, 27 of 52, 359 yards and 2 touchdowns. Rushing the ball here, it was not a great day for them. Their main guy here, Andre Williams, he had 12 carries for 22 yards and a touchdown. Their leading rusher was actually Michael Cox. 2 carries for 27 yards. Peyton Hillis had 4 for 20. Odell Beckham Jr., 8 catches on 11 targets, 156 yards, did not get a score. Larry Donnell did get a score on his 4 catches for 25 yards. And Corey Washington, 4 catches for 48 yards and a score. Peyton Hillis had 5 catches for 50 yards. He actually looked pretty good catching the ball out of the backfield in this one. And Ruben Randall was 4 for 49. And Andre Williams did add 1 reception for 24 yards, although he did fumble the ball in this game, which is why you did see some of Peyton Hillis. And with that, Rob, back to you.
Yeah, well, that's it for the game-by-game here for Week 9. We're going to do real quick. We're unfortunately getting this podcast out a little later than we had hoped this week, so not going to be a whole lot of help to you guys as far as pickups. I'd like to go through it just real quick. We will post this on our website, however, at redzonewarriors.com. I'm going to go through it really fast, just give you some basic names to look at in case for some off chance you have late waivers that run. But at quarterback, of course, RG3 came back. He's kind of hit or miss, although he does have a really good schedule for the rest of season. You have Mark Sanchez taking over there in Philadelphia for an injured Nick Foles, another guy to look at. And then, sadly, Michael Vick, if you're desperate, you're dying out there, he could help you maybe in a 2-quarterback league or something. Running back-wise, you have Trey Mason. He seems to be the guy there in St. Louis, although, as I mentioned, their schedule is very brutal moving forward. Cardinals, Broncos are the next 2 on the docket, so he'll get some volume there hopefully, but wouldn't look too much from him from a point-wise. Terrence West, it's really murky situation there in Cleveland between him and Ben Tate, but he seems to be the guy who's getting the nod there. So he's a guy definitely to look at if you're dying this week for running back. Bobby Rainey, also, and Charles Sims there in Tampa Bay. These guys seem to be peaking. Charles Sims was inactive last week, but he should get some carries this week. He might actually be the guy at the end of the day who's going to get the most touches here. Alfred Blue in Houston. There's an injury there, as there sometimes is there with Arian Foster. They think he's there on bye week this week. All the indications are that Foster will probably play next week, but he's a nice guy to have in case Foster does not play in Week 11. And of course, Adrian Peterson. We spent a lot of that at the top of the show discussing him. If you have space for him in a situation that makes sense for your team, obviously, if he were to play this season still, he could have a huge impact for your team. If you want to have a guy who beats children on your fantasy team, he's the guy for you. Kyrie Robinson's coming back, as well as Pierre Thomas from injury if they happen to have been cut by an owner there because they needed a spot for some bye week issues. They'll get some sort of role there in New Orleans, although we never know how big or small that role is going to be. Wide receiver wise, Martavius Bryant from the Steelers. Big Ben's throwing 6 touchdowns a game. He's got to throw that to somebody, and this rookie is getting it done. He's had 5 TD catches in the last 3 games, so he's killing it. Devontae Adams, this is the Packers coming off bye, so might be able to pick him up. He's the 3rd target there in a very healthy, pass-friendly offense, so there's worse choices than him. From a tight end perspective, we'll finish up here. Kyle Rudolph, again, he's coming back from his growing injury. He's an elite tight end. Should be top 5 the rest of the way if he can stay healthy. So it's a good time to grab him if you're hurting at tight end or you need someone to fill in for the rest of the season. Charles Clay for the Dolphins has been doing pretty well for you. And again, as I mentioned earlier, Michael Rivera for the Raiders has a really good matchup this week in a week in which 6 tight ends are off, 6 really good tight ends playing against the Broncos. They're not too good against the tight end, so Michael Rivera is a good guy to pick up. And with that, Jay, we're going to move on to who to start, who to sit. So why don't you get us started with that?
All right, well, what we're actually going to do here is start off with a guy who a lot of people I know are going to be having questions about this week. And for the most part, I'm guessing our answer is probably going to be, sit him. But Charles Sims is a really intriguing guy right now in the league. Tampa Bay running back, coming back off injury, a second-round draft pick. So we'll start off with another guy who you just mentioned, Michael Rivera, or Charles Sims in a flex. And we're going to just assume, just so everybody knows, right now this is all PPR. That's all we really talk about is PPR. So Charles Sims or Michael Rivera in a flex. Rob, what would you say on that?
Just kind of as I mentioned, I think I would go with Rivera in this one just because we haven't even seen Sims take a snap yet. He was a healthy and active last week. So I'd probably give it a week just to see what he does, see what the snap count is, see what the carry count is there, and probably safer pick would be Rivera, at least for this week. Again, a good matchup again against the Broncos.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Now, what about moving on here from him? Because that's going to be, basically, like I said, same answer for everything. Everybody's intrigued about this guy. A lot of my friends have been asking me about him, guys at work and whatnot. And I would just say, if you've got him on your bench, let him sit there this week. If he blows up, he blows up. Oh well. But if he does, then you can put him in next week. But if he does and he only gets 2 carries, you don't want to gamble on it that much, especially this part of the season. This is the grind part of the season where a lot of guys are trying to grind out their way to get in the playoffs. So moving on here, how about Terrence Williams or Ruben Randall? Rob, Terrence Williams, Ruben Randall. That's Terrence Williams at Jacksonville and Ruben Randall at Seattle.
Yeah, I think to me this strictly is determined by if Romo starts or not. When Romo wasn't in there, Terrence did absolutely nothing. So I think if Romo's in there, I'd probably go Terrence, and if not, I'd go Randall.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with that myself because if Romo's not in there, you're gonna be in trouble. That's all there is to it. Because Brandon Weeden, just is god awful. Now another one here. So Ruben Randall or Michael Crabtree, and as I said, Ruben Randall is at the Seahawks, and Crabtree is at New Orleans.
Yeah, well, the Seattle defense isn't quite what they once were, but they're still very solid, and it is in Seattle. Although I'm pretty down on Crabtree this season. He's at New Orleans. I expect them to be losing, probably have to throw it quite a bit, so I'd probably give the edge to Crabtree. I think he should. He's going to see a lot of the top corner there of New Orleans, but I think at the end of the day, I'd probably give him the edge, especially like we said in the PPR.
Okay, good deal. Now another guy here, me. I'm gonna go with Denard on this one this week, but Denard Robinson or Anquan Bolden. That's with Denard versus Dallas and Anquan at New Orleans.
Wow. Yeah, I don't. It's hard to get away from Denard here. I think Denard at Dallas. Dallas is actually pretty decent against the run. They're about middle of the road. I think they're giving up about 4.7 yards per carry to running backs in the last 5 weeks or so. I think I'd give the edge to Denard there.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and agree with you. Which is funny because 72% of the quote unquote experts are saying that in a PPR league, Anquan Bolden's the one to have here. I think they do that because he's a wide receiver and it's PPR, but I think Denard is he's proven that he can gain, close to 100 yards a game. He's not a typical running back, it's just north and south. The guy is very elusive and very athletic. So I think that he's gonna continue to put up a decent score every week. So moving on from there, we'll do a couple more here. What about Michael Floyd or Brandon Cooks? Michael Floyd or Brandon Cooks? Michael Floyd versus St. Louis or Brandon Cooks versus San Francisco?
Yeah, I think this one's actually pretty close. Brandon Cooks and New Orleans, for that matter, clearly plays better at home. They are home in this one against San Francisco. I think Floyd just been so sketchy to no fault of his own, no fault of Carson Palmer. I mean, he just spreads the ball around so much. He's just not trustworthy. In a PPR, I think the ceiling or the floor, for that matter, maybe actually both is better for Cooks, especially at home. So I'll give the edge to Cooks.
Yeah, I'm gonna again agree with you there. New Orleans at home is tough to beat. New Orleans, if it was on the road, I would probably go the other way, but not at home. And we'll do one more here. Doug Baldwin Doug Baldwin versus the Giants, so in New York, or Odell Beckham Jr. against Seattle in New York.
Yeah, I think Doug Baldwin got a little nicked up in the last game.
Yeah, he is questionable with a groin, but again, it's questionable right now, so we'll just assume he's going to play at this point.
Yeah, I think Odell Beckham just looks great. The guy looks dynamic. You got Victor Cruz no longer on that offense, and he's clearly filling a role. So I think I would give the edge to Odell there. All right, Jason, let me actually finish it up with this one, just you being a Lions fan and all. So there's some start-sit questions here regarding Reggie Bush. As we mentioned, he's coming back from an injury, as well as Calvin Johnson. There's some start-sit, Reggie Bush versus Eric Decker, Reggie Bush versus Martavis Bryant there in Pittsburgh. But I wanted to ask you, because I know you watch more of the Lions than I do. Theo Riddick has come in here in Reggie Bush's absence, and he's done awesome, quite frankly. In fact, he's outperformed Reggie Bush when Reggie Bush was in there. So a couple of things, just do you think, given how well Theo Riddick has done in Reggie Bush's absence, that he's going to cut into Reggie Bush's snap count, his touches, and so forth? Because clearly if he does, then that's going to hurt him in any sort of flex position to start Reggie Bush this week, or moving forward for that matter.
Yes. Short answer, yes. Long answer, as I said from the beginning of the season, Lions backfield is a very sketchy proposition. You've got Joique Bell, you've got Reggie Bush, and I was saying this from the beginning of the season, you have Riddick, because coming out of training camp, all you heard about Riddick was he was, quote, uncoverable out of the backfield. The guy is just going to catch ball after ball after ball, and when he gets in open space, he's actually faster than Reggie Bush. He makes better cuts than Reggie Bush. His pass protection is probably lacking because he's a rookie. But yeah, the guy is really impressive to watch. So I definitely think that he cuts into Reggie Bush's value, and he cuts into Joique Bell's value for that matter. The main value that I think Joique Bell has above either of them is he does seem to get the red zone, inside the 10-yard line carries. But yeah, Reggie Bush coming back, for those of you that own him, or if somebody dropped him for some reason, from listening to me say don't own Lions running backs this year, then don't pick him up, because like I said, don't own Lions running backs this year. None of them are worth a play, really, unless you're desperate for points, because you don't know if they're going to get any points, because you never know who Caldwell's going to stick in. And I watch every single Lions game start to finish. These guys, they share the ball like crazy. It's not a single back system in any way, shape, or form. It is truly just whoever Caldwell feels like going with. So, yeah, hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, it did. I think it just made that murky situation that much more murky. Probably better for the Lions and outside of fantasy, though, but not so good for us.
Oh, it's absolutely better for the Lions outside of fantasy. People don't know what the fuck to to prepare for. So it's definitely good. Definitely good.
All right, well, that wraps it up for Week 9. On the next show, we'll be discussing Week 11 waiver wire grabs, along with helping you to decide who to start and who to sit. In the meantime, go to redzonewarriors.com, where you can watch previous episodes, see our rankings, and subscribe to and rate the show via iTunes. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter and tweet us all your fantasy football questions at Red Zone Warriors. So for the Cushman, I am Rob the Commish Smith, and we will catch you next time.
Yeah.